The world is changing every single day, and education, it changes every single day. And I think what is happening and going on at Putney is preparing students for a world beyond college. The school, I would say, does a really amazing job around diversity, equity, inclusion. Domestic and international students are mixed together, particularly that, and also the same thing for housing. There's a deep sense of community. When students are going through the process, there are supports and systems in place from our admissions office. When students arrive, they have their own orientation as they're arriving today. When I think about Putney, I think about a place that is student-centered. I think about agency. I think about drive. And the reason why I use those words is that students who come or look at Putney are looking for an educational experience that is not going to necessarily put them in a box, but allows them to explore kind of what interests them and still have the opportunity to be academically challenged, right? In the classroom and even outside of the classroom, particularly with our workshop program that I find just kind of, it's the foundation of the school. And the school is founded as a farm school. We have a working farm. Students do AM barn, PM barn. They work in the kitchen. They're entrenched into the community. I think that students who look at Putney or particularly choose Putney, that is something that intrigues them. Also knowing at the same time, they can dig deeper into things that academically intrigue them and interest them as individuals, as learners. What makes Putney unique is the world is changing every single day, and education, it changes every single day. And I think what is happening and going on at Putney is preparing students for a world beyond college. And what I mean by that is that college might be a student's journey, but the skills that you get at Putney are lifelong skills. They're not just skills to help you be able to dialogue in a college classroom space or to have an intellectual conversation with one of your peers. These are skills you're getting on how, what it means to work hard and contribute to a community, what it means to be a voice. And that's something that I think really makes Putney really unique. Also, one thing that really sticks out to me as someone new in the community is the student leadership opportunities. We have students on the board, we have student heads of school, we have day student heads, just to name a few. And students are ingrained into this place, not necessarily the sense of everything that Putney does, they're yes, but they're ingrained in the sense of the fabric. They're helping the school become better and better through time. And I've heard that from many students when I went through the process of interviewing here is that, we are a part of the decision making, or we're helping make this change or this decision, and we're helping move the school forward. And not many, if any, independent school, particularly boarding school in the country, really does that in that way. Our international population, about 6% of the student body, so relatively small. And I would say, particularly going back to student leadership, that is something that is ingrained in a part of the school culture that students are really involved. Our international students are involved in student leadership capacity. They're also very much ambassadors also in the admissions process. They actually partner with our director of international programs, a small group of students of the international population, to connect with international students who are going through the admissions process. The school, I would say, does a really amazing job around diversity, equity, inclusion, but particularly also making sure that students feel integrated. For international students, those are new international students are arriving today, and those students are given the opportunity where they'll have an orientation, they'll be able to connect with other international students who are kind of going to be their mentors throughout this orientation. Our goal at Putney is to make sure that we're creating a very intentional community, that students feel seen, they feel heard, they feel valued. And that's really important to us, from residentially through other cultural events. We also do have a director of international programs who partners with international families and supports those students who are coming into our program. For us, it's not about having every single country represented. It is about making sure that students have a connection to this place, they feel seen, they feel valued. I was just talking to one of our students yesterday from Korea who is about to start her senior year. Family was just so excited and happy that her education was at Putney. A student who's an artist, very active in the community. One of the students who actually interviewed me, they have a lot of agency, they have a lot of autonomy within the community, and that's no different for international students. International and domestic students, I would say to you, sometimes you can't even, you're the students from where? They're over the world. But the interactions are, I would say, very positive and collaborative. They are super friendly, they're engaged. Our advisory groups are mixed up, but they're not mixed up in the sense internationals with one and domestics with another. Domestic and international students are mixed together, particularly that, and also the same thing for housing. There's a deep sense of community. I'm always kind of taken aback of just like how strong connections can become in boarding school, but particularly at Putney being a school of 236 students, it's a small and intentional community that students really embrace each other fully. So I don't know offhand particularly about any, and I would have to find that out for you for sure. I have to ask our director of international programs particularly about that. But I do know that we have kind of DIB, JB kind of students who are involved in diversity, equity, inclusion, who are doing some of the work. So some of our international students are involved with that. And there's a range of students who support and partner with the admissions office. But I'll find out the information for you about the events. Students transition is really important, I think, for any student, but particularly for international students who are leaving their home, coming pretty far away to go to boarding school. We have an amazing director of international programs who actually teaches our ESOL program, or English as a second or third or fourth language, depending on students' language background. But she's also integral in really working with families through the admissions process that they understand and they feel really a deep level of collaboration. When students are going through the process, there are supports and systems in place from our admissions office. When students arrive, they have their own orientation as they're arriving today, and there are international student ambassadors, about 6 or 7, who actually help support that orientation. And then throughout the year, we're also thinking about residential life, kind of where they're living, who they're living with, who's going to make for a meaningful connection. There's a lot of intentionality behind that. We also know that for some students, this transition is really just like, oh, it's a lot as they're processing. And then there are other students who are, this is easy peasy, I can do this with no issues, I'm going to boarding school. We want to make sure that transition is really smooth. We have most of our faculty and staff live on campus. There is this deep sense of intentional community, understanding that this is a culturally different environment for them and wanting them to feel connected and seen. Our residential light team we give information. We send a slideshow actually to the faculty and staff of all the new students, get a sense of who they are before students join the community. We partner with our director of international programs with orientation, welcoming families to campus. And then also as a school, between the head of school, the director of advancement and admissions, we do our best to also, as we're traveling, to connect and engage those families. We'll do a few virtual events for families throughout the year to engage them and connect them with the school, to give them updates about things that are happening. Being so far away, you still want to know what's happening at the school that your child's attending. I would say that for international students that the transition tends to be a little bit easier because there is a lot of thought taking place. They have about 2 days of orientation. Today and tomorrow will be kind of a full day of orientation, of tours and getting things checked off and things you need to get done, as well as they transition into Putney.